It took time and one major incident before humanity reached for the stars, nearly destroying themselves in the process with self induced war, famine, pestilence, and killing each other, simple death without reason. Yet through all this, and having a death world as a crater world, they finally rose above. As they rise above, humanity is offered a seat at the Galactic Council. Yet after this offering, the Council did not receive a confirmation or a denial. It was a question, not a comment nor any appreciation. It was simply, what is it going to cost? The humans kept digging on this question for a while, and they would not sign anything. They would not agree to anything. And eventually, they asked to see all documentation prior to signing. The council refused, insisting that humanity had to sign the documentation without even being able to review it. This is when most of humanity responded with, "No one is that stupid, not anymore." Through means unknown to anyone but the humans themselves, humanity was able to get their digits on all the files. Once they reviewed all the files, the response to the question on whether or not they would join was immediate. The answer was an ocean of blood before an ounce in tribute. And with that, humanity closed itself off from the rest of the other species of the galaxy. The message simply hanging in space as a warning and a simple note to remind everyone that humanity would not join them. It's not part of their HOA or anything else you want to call it. They are their own independent species. Over time, over centuries, others tried to convince the humans to join in, but humanity would not ever respond. Those that tried to go in to talk to the humans face to, well, if you want to call it a face that they're not human, would be chased out, weapons facing them, or messages sent to the humans would simply be received in no reply, and human territory became known as a complete dead zone. Over time, humans became myths for a while. The idea that humans were some sort of monsters or something out there in the dark, and they would not leave their territory, but as long as you didn't mess with them, they would not mess with you. This was well noted, and humans eventually became more than myths, they became legends in space. Eventually, a species decided they would challenge this legend, and with the combined forces of the Knickknack and the Paddywhack, tried to take a human colony world. These two factions of the Axe species, which were a six-limbed species, four primary for locomotion, and heads of a triangular shape with very large eyes on the side, and the two forelimbs that are held more like pincers, but were actually very, very articulate tentacle like digits, their green gray scale shimmering in the light. Yet these species decided that they would now take the territory. They cared not for legends, believed that they could simply walk in and it was just a scare tactic. As they approach the colony world, they see a small fleet and plenty of space stations, many of them harvesting materials from a local asteroid belt. And there are plenty of smaller vessels scurrying around like insects. The thought of this, as they scurry around like bugs, made many of the act chuckle, as it looked as though humans were trying to emulate them in some way, shape, or form. As the act began to get closer, very large human battleships arrive. Each are absolutely covered in weapons, launch tubes, large cannons on all sides, and the Ack laughed again. Are they really insisting on a fight? As the alarm sounded, signifying humans had actually locked onto them, the Ack were sent a message. Unknown fleet, you have entered human territory. Regardless of your intentions, you are ordered to remove yourselves from human territory. You have 1 minute to comply. They didn't need a minute, as both act battle groups began firing before they even adjusted their bows towards the human battleships. The human battleships responded instantly, and from the battleships, the planetary defense fleet, the closest battle stations, and even many civilian vessels that were now in effective range, one could see cannons firing using chemicals, creating a small burst of fire out the front. Electromagnetics launched solid projectiles at 0.98 speed of light. Fusion powered munitions began to get launched, and they filled space in a massive cloud, each employing its own countermeasures to assure it struck its target. No need for chemical projectiles, as this time they would use something a lot faster. Drones are also deployed in massive sheets and waves, each wave with enough ordnance to disable a frigate on its own, if not destroying it outright, that is. The biggest and most destructive weapons the humans used were energy projectors that created a particle beam so tight that it could cleave an ACK ship in half in mere seconds. The ACK were surprised at the amount of ordnance, but fired their own weapons as well. Focused almost exclusively on energy weapons, they were confident that the humans would be defeated quickly. They had to be, as there's one aspect of space warfare that cannot be ignored, and that is heat. Everyone knows that engines run cold. Nobody uses fusion torches. Nobody uses chemicals on their ships anymore. That's fine, but weapons run very hot, and everyone knows this. After only a few volleys, both sides would need to stop and cool, cycle their weapons so that they can fire at full next time. Like musket firings of old, after each volley they had to wait a time. With their numerical advantage and the fact that they had several Dreadnought-class ships, the ACK were confident in their victory. As the shots are fired, the ACK noticed something about the human battleships. Each one seemed to be emitting a strange haze, a cloud that made the ACK believe that the humans were trying to use a smokescreen, or perhaps this was a psychological weapon. It wouldn't matter to the ACK, as they believed that after their cooling period, they would be able to take out the last of the human ships, just destroy them outright before humans could actually cool anything down. This confidence came because the ACK are very well known for the fact that they could cool their ships faster than anyone else. In fact, they could cool their dreadnought in just over 4 minutes. And they believe, despite the losses that they've already taken, their victory is completely assured. That is when more of their own ships began to get splashed or go dark with incredible speed. The ACK looked, and the smoking ships were still firing, still approaching, and still firing. How are they not overheating? This is insane. They are they going to cool themselves? Are they going to blow themselves to pieces? The ACK continued to monitor the human ships, awaiting for an explosion that was not going to come. More and more of their own ships were being destroyed, disabled, boarded, and captured. This is a disaster, as the number of ACK ships remaining has dropped below the number of human ships remaining without the numerical advantage, and still a full minute of cooldown remaining before they can fire again. The order for withdrawal was given. As the ACK try to flee, even more of their ships fall to human weapons. The smoke from the human battleships, as well as the fire from their chemical projectiles, made one of the ACK captains yell into his comms, "Release us of the pursuit of the metal dragons," before jumping to FTL. The video of this battle made it all the way across the known galaxy to the other species, and they all seemed to be frightened. The humans' metal dragons seem to breathe fire, and it's enough to keep all the other species away permanently. No one ever dared face a human ship. It seems they didn't need to cool down, as they were simply born of fire. After the battle, the human colony asked the fleet that had came to help them out if they actually needed anything. The answer was simple: water. Lots and lots of water. Every human knew and had already made arrangements to drop as much dihydrogen monoxide off as possible. Though the issue with weapons heating and cooling is always an issue, regardless of any species, the rule that cannot be broken can always be bent. The coolant tank, of course, was still full as it cycled the way it was supposed to, but the water reserves used to vent excess heat were half empty at this point. Many weapons still steamed as the evaporation used to cool things even more was still going on to make sure the weapon systems didn't go critical and explode. Using these together, again, they were able to skirt the rules. One of the commanders even said, "Those idiots never figured out that fire superiority has little to do with bigger guns. Got more to do with concentrated, continuous fire." It is well noted throughout the galaxy that you never, ever enter human territory. Even if you need help, you don't go into human territory because for some reason, when they start firing, they just do not stop. Everyone fears this, as they believe that perhaps human weapon systems are in some way, shape, or form better in a way that they have not figured out. And until they do, there's no possible way that they would even chance going against humans again. Though they do try to find something, they try to monitor anything that comes out of human territory. There are monitoring stations everywhere trying to get anything they can. The majority of what they get are what humans call sitcoms or vidcoms or any type of entertainment, but every once in a while they get a small piece of human knowledge. And for some reason, there is a phrase that just stuck out to everyone, but they can't understand why. When one of the humans simply said, "Well, to us, sometimes the old ways are just the best." If the galaxy at large actually had context for this, they would have seen that this was from an old war documentary where weapons were overheating, and the very first thing they did is the humans relieved themselves of their water that they need to survive, and simply cooled down the guns so that they could continue to fire. Yet this secret remains, and so does the legend of the dragons in space. Hello, everybody. This is Syntax. Thank you for joining me today on this short story. Now, before I go, I need to say that today's winner is Chris Johnson, with Julius Boone coming in a really close second. I also need to send out some giant thank yous to the supporters of this channel, and they are Sir, MTF Guard, SS Demon, Guardian Sage, Erica Gem, Douglas Scarborough, Joseph Blosh, Chris Dixon, and Steve Elwood. Thank you all so much for supporting the channel. Everybody else, I'll see you on the next one. This is Syntax, punching out.